What's going on, guys? Now, before we get into the video, I do just want to ask that if you enjoy the content, please support the channel. You can do that by subscribing right here, Sigland Fantasy Lab. You can go ahead, subscribe, like the video, like any content, and be sure to go into the comment section if you have anything that you want to say. If you disagree with something that I say, if you agree with it, go ahead, go into the comment section. I'll be active. Now, let's get into the video. So, this year we've been looking at a lot of wide receiver duos that are going to be in the league. There's obviously top ones. There's going to be, Jefferson and Addison if they have a quarterback, of course. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, I think it's Romeo Doubs with the Patriots, Micaiah Lemon, Devontae Smith. You have a whole lot of different, George Pickens, C.D. Lamb. You have a bunch of guys that are going to be awesome this year, but some of them are going to finish where they're projected to finish. Okay, the top guys are usually going to be on top. Guys that aren't super great, they're probably going to finish not super great. But there's always going to be one pair that's a breakout every year. And these are guys that go from mediocre to the next level. And when you kind of look around the league, there's a few different options you can look at. But I was taking a look at the different teams, and I think that these are two guys that I'm about to mention that absolutely everyone should be picking up in fantasy, because I don't think that you could go wrong with either of them. I have my own personal preference on who I think is going to be the number one, but let's get right into it. So who we have is the Bears with Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. So right here, as you can see by their stats, this is a clear definition of breakout year for these guys, because they're both going from virtually the same stat lines. Like, it's almost hard trying to have two receivers that put up these stat lines for the same team. I should say three, because last year we had DJ Moore as well. And as you can see here by all of their stats, look, 50 catches, 47 catches, 44 catches, 660 yards, 650 yards, 682, and then 6 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. And you can even see that the average. Now, in fantasy-wise, these guys would be great flex options, okay? Maybe not great, because they had some good weeks and some not so good weeks. But the biggest thing between this wide receiving trio going into this year is it's no longer a trio. It's about to just be a duo between Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. And the biggest takeaway from the Bears is you're going into year 2 of Brian Johnson and Caleb Williams. Historically, Brian Johnson has made quarterbacks perform at a higher level going into year 2 when you see, Jared Goff, who's a different type of player than Caleb Williams. But you also see that talented quarterbacks take levels forward. So the biggest thing with Caleb Williams has been his accuracy. And the accuracy plays a big part into mediocre routes and being able to hit those. A lot of his misses weren't just downfield. He was missing guys open in the flat, out routes, some crossers. He was missing routes that were just kind of layups for a lot of quarterbacks because he puts so much heat on the ball. And, well, yeah, it's kind of a frustrating thing. However, quarterbacks that have a talented arm typically get better for their accuracy. I think a prime example of this is Josh Allen. When he first came into the league, super athletic guy, made awesome highlights and great throws with his arm, but he was also an inaccurate quarterback. Not a lot of his receivers were going for high yards his first year, nor was he completing a significant amount of passes. But he ended up getting a lot better because accuracy is actually one of those things that quarterbacks can get better at. Okay? Quarterbacks that come into the league with an average arm or below average, it doesn't typically get better. They don't become more talented. The talent level just stays there. They either just get more accurate, more IQ, or they just build on to small fundamentals of the game. Even guys like Lamar Jackson, who people were saying should have been a running back when he first came into the league, while he was a dynamic playmaker, he had awesome moments with his arm that displayed a great talent for being able to move on the run and hit guys downfield and hit some intermediate routes. Once again, he's another one that needed to get his accuracy up higher. And now, two-time MVP. But with Caleb Williams, we're going into year 2 of Brian Johnson, and it's also going to be Caleb Williams' 3rd year into the league. And so the accuracy, you would think by this year, is going to take a big step forward. Not just because of, repetition and getting a lot of reps in camp in the off season, being able to throw the ball, but it's another year of understanding a complex offensive system. Brian Johnson is very much a timing, route-running offense where you have options, but he's going to scheme guys open. And the biggest example of scheming guys open was Rome Odunze in the first half of last year. So let's go ahead and take a look ahead at the splits. Let's see it. Where is it? Here we go. Season stats right here. You could see through the first half of the season, 31 catches, 473 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And touchdowns were coming off of flea flickers. I go back and look at his highlights. You'll see that such a significant amount of his catches were wide open. Now, granted, there's other guys on offense taking up some of the defensive pressure, but a lot of the scheme was what helped Rome Odunze take off in the first half of last year. And in fantasy football, a lot of guys got to see a lot of that reward, and it started to slowly die out the second half of this season, not just because, Rome Odunze was dealing with an injury, but you also then had Luther Burden who stepped in. So you could see that in the first half, it was pretty much Rome Odunze. And then the second half of the season, it was Luther Burden. Rome Odunze was a big scheme guy. He seems a lot like an Amon-Ra St. Brown when it comes to the wide receiver one and how he plays. And Luther Burden is very much like another Lions wide receiver that just got a pretty big payday. When you take a look at Luther Burden's film, one of the biggest things that stands out is just how fast he is. He is extremely quick off the line, and then even when he's in the open field, he is so fast side to side. There's times where he was almost like juking himself out of his own shoes and just like kind of falling onto the ground just because he was moving so fast. But not only is it just that he's fast, guys in the league are pretty fast, like Xavier Worthy, fast guy. A lot of just getting him in sweeps and throwing him deep balls. But the thing that sets Luther Burden apart is he's an excellent catcher of the football. When you take a look at a lot of his catches, a lot of things were contested, live over the middle and being able to catch it in traffic. And also he had some great catches on the sidelines for toe taps, showing that he has a lot of athletic ability and being able to catch the ball in tough areas. So he's going to be an awesome target to throw to when someone isn't wide open. And even with that, Rome Odunze is still a pretty big guy. But when you take a look at it, they each had about 650 yards last year when you could look at the totals. They both had around 40-something catches. You had DJ Moore last year eat into a good bit of that. He had the most catches, the most yards, and tied for the most touchdowns. They just traded this guy. Not because he was just getting old, but because they see that they have 2 breakout wide receivers. And not only do they have great breakout wide receivers, they have an awesome tight end. Now, one of the other reasons why I do think that the Bears offense is going to be great, but why these 2 guys are going to see a heavy volume. So not only with Caleb Williams getting more accurate and being able to deliver more catches to these guys that can boost up their stats more, and with DJ Moore being traded and a lot of his catches, his yards and touchdowns going to these 2 guys, Caleb Williams is also a super athletic quarterback. He is a dynamic playmaker, and the reoccurring theme that you see with quarterbacks like that is they don't take the easy passes. What they like to do is move the ball to the wide receivers as opposed to throwing checkdowns to running backs. You see it with a lot of dynamic guys, okay? Josh Allen likes to roll out of the pocket, and he likes to try to get that ball downfield or make a play with his legs. James Cook can catch the ball, and there's a lot of times he should arguably get the ball more often. But great quarterbacks that are playmakers that can use their feet, they tend to put the ball downfield more as opposed to taking small checkdowns. So that's going to leave a lot more targets on the board for Luther Burden and Rome Odunze. Now, obviously, Colston Loveland's going to fit into that, and he'll be a great target, but that's going to be a lot of over-the-middle plays. Tight ends typically catch the ball or between the hashes. And the thing with Caleb Williams is he doesn't step up into a pocket. He rolls outwards, and so he's making throws outside of the pocket on the left and right side, trying to throw the ball either towards the sidelines or downfield. And that's going to be a bigger area for Rome Odunze and Luther Burden to step into. And Brian Johnson offense, they typically like to run the ball, pass. He would love to run the ball, but he's not throwing tons of checkdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs was a super awesome player for the Lions, and when Brian Johnson was there, sure, throw some checkdowns, and he saw a good bit. But the difference between the Lions and here, they had Jared Goff. Guys that are less athletic or higher IQ, less athletic in either primes, they typically tend to take the checkdowns more. Jared Goff stays in the pocket, and so at the last second, if someone is going to sack him, rather than try to roll out and make tons of plays, he's going to dump it off to a running back, trying to get 2 or 3 yards. Even guys last year, reigning MVP Matt Stafford, he surprisingly threw the ball at a higher rate for checkdowns to running backs, even though he had 2 great wide receivers. Not just because, hey, it's easy yards, but because he's also getting a lot older and he's getting a higher IQ. So he's taking the shorter routes. Caleb Williams is still super, super young and he's still developing. I wouldn't even say he's hit the best version of himself yet. So that means he's going to be moving that ball more downfield, trying to be more dynamic. Not just opening up more catches for these 2 guys, but also probably putting them in the end zone a lot more. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more highlights from Caleb Williams where it's, literally putting the ball in the end zone to one of these 2 guys' hands. And even so, the biggest thing that stands out with their wide receivers is they are big guys. So Luther Burden is 6 foot 210. That's about the same size that, in a previous video I covered. Really similar to a DJ Moore. Super athletic and bulky. And this guy is way faster, in my opinion. And then Rome Odunze, 6 foot 3, 214. He's a massive target. This would be honestly, this is going to be another AJ Brown and Devontae, where, AJ was primarily making contested catches downfield, and Smitty, he was a guy that was speedy, more on the outside, being able to make more plays in the open field. And that's going to be what Luther Burden and Rome Odunze are. Now, if I had to take a guess at where they're going to be finishing this season, I'm going to say they're both going to be over 1,000-yard receivers. And that's with with Colston Loveland coming alive. I think that the Bears offense is just going to be humming. And then you look at guys in their division, the teams they're playing against, I think that they're going to have a lot more yards than they did last year. And the other thing, too, is Caleb Williams was, not super consistent, and they still put up these types of numbers in a little triumvirate here. I mean, it's hard kind of having 3 wide receivers put up such similar lines. So now that it's boiled down to 2, I think that these 2 guys are going to be able to stand out far, far more, and they're going to make a big jump. So they're going to go from that 40 catch range, 600-yard range, up towards 60, maybe 70 catches for each of them. Definitely over 1,000 yards for both. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Luther Burden end up with more yards just because he's been so much more dynamic. And they also get him involved in the rushing as well, too. I think that this is going to be a great year, honestly. And I think that if you play fantasy football, you can't go wrong picking either of these guys and making them a flex wide receiver. So if you're playing in a, start 3 wide receiver league, you're going to probably pick, like an Amon-Ra first. The second round, you might go with like a Devontae Adams or a Devontae Smith, depending on who's going to be there. And then from there, it's going to be a mix of guys. You might see a Luther Burden, but I think that they're going to be strong contenders as flex wide receivers, especially if you're going to draft, 2 running backs straight up, and then you start getting into wide receivers. Then Luther Burden or Rome, they can make a 3rd wide receiver, and they'd be perfectly fine. So that's pretty much all I got for today. The biggest thing is go ahead and draft these guys in fantasy football. And before you even do that, too, take a look at the tape. If you don't think that they're just going to magically get better, go ahead and look at their highlights from last year. Go ahead and look at Brian Johnson, 2nd year of the Lions. You're going to see a whole lot of wow plays from these wide receivers, and you're going to see a pretty consistent theme that this system is actually just going to open up more targets for both of them while they're both actually just good wide receivers as well. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. If you like the content, go ahead, like the video. If you want to subscribe, go right ahead. I'll try to get more of these out there for you, and maybe we'll do some more videos, but we'll see.